Since 90% of our viewers have not yet subscribed, your support is crucial to our ability to continue producing interesting material. Please click the notification and subscribe bell. Please write your city in the comments section below and let us know where you're watching from. I never imagined that I would find myself standing on the precipice of a life that I had meticulously built, questioning everything I had once believed to be unchangeable. My marriage, my home, my role as a wife, mother, and a trusted member of a close-knit family. But beneath the surface of this seemingly ideal life, a quiet ache had started to grow, creeping through the cracks of my heart like ivy on an old wall. I told myself that it was nothing, a fleeting restlessness born of routine, but deep down I knew better than this. It started during a family get-together, one of those summer afternoons that stretched leisurely into the evening, where laughter and conversation blended with the smell of grilled food and the hum of cicadas. Our families had always been intertwined not only by blood, but also by shared traditions, by holidays spent together, and Sam, my husband's cousin, was one of the familiar faces that had always been there, but had never really caught my attention until that day. Despite the fact that we had attended the same family gatherings growing up, I had considered him to be little more than a background presence in my life. He was quiet and reserved, the type of person who preferred the periphery of a crowded room to its center. But that summer, something about him seemed different. Or maybe it was me who had changed as the sun went down and the sky turned a gentle shade of lavender. We were sitting together on the porch, away from the commotion of the gathering, and our conversation started off as it always had, with courteous questions and recollections of previous family get-togethers. But somewhere along the line, something changed. He talked about his dreams, his struggles, and his desire to find meaning in a world that frequently felt meaningless. In addition to being enthralled by his words, Hollow also made me feel noticed and understood in a manner that I hadn't experienced in years. Sam lingered in my mind like the melody of a song I couldn't quite forget, but I told myself it was nothing more than a brief lapse, a flicker of connection that meant something. Love wasn't yet, but it was something that shocked me in the days that followed. It was a spark, a tremor, a quiet stirring in the depths of my heart, and it scared me. In the end, nothing matters because I loved my husband Daniel. He was a decent man, trustworthy, and the kind of partner that many women would aspire to be like. Together, we created a life full of peaceful moments and dreams. However, despite my best efforts to concentrate on all the reasons why my heart should remain unwavering, I was unable to ignore the growing distance between our marriage. I had discovered that it was not the fairy tale I had once imagined. Rather, it was a compromise routine, the gradual blending of two lives into one, and somewhere along the line, amid raising children, paying bills, and navigating the everyday realities of adulthood, the spark between Daniel and me had dimmed. I was certain that we still loved each other, but it was a love that had become comfortable, predictable, and, if I was being honest, a little immobile. At first, our interactions were innocent, a shared smile across the room at another family gathering, a quick conversation in the kitchen while the others were busy. But every moment felt charged, as if the air between us crackled with unsaid words. Sam's quiet intensity and thoughtful gaze felt like an echo of something I had lost, a reminder of the person I used to be before life became so heavy. I was reading too much into things, but as the weeks stretched into months, I found myself drawn to him in a way that I couldn't explain. It wasn't just his presence that captivated me. It was the way he seemed to see through the facade I wore to the restless, yearning soul underneath. I remember the first time our connection crossed the line from innocent to something more. It was a crisp autumn evening, the kind where the sky is a canvas of stars and the air smells of fallen leaves. We had gathered at my in-laws' house for a family dinner, and as the night wore on, I went outside for a moment of solitude. I found Sam there leaning against the porch railing, his breath visible in the cool night air. We talked as usual, but this time there was a weight to our words, a vulnerability that hadn't been there before. I'm sleepwalking through my life. Before I could stop it, I confessed that I was just going through the motions, but I wasn't truly living. Sam didn't immediately answer, instead turning to face the horizon with a thoughtful expression. I know what you mean, he said. Sometimes I wonder if this is all there is, just existing instead of truly being alive. His words struck a chord deep within me, and for a moment we just stood there in silence, the unspoken understanding between us stronger than anything we could have muttered as he turned to face me at last. The weight of my decisions during those stolen moments, the whispers in the dark, and the deepening chasm of guilt had finally settled into every fiber of my being. I thought I could handle it, that I could live two lives balancing the person I was with the person I had become. But the truth has a way of finding its voice even when you try to keep quiet. His eyes held a mixture of sadness and something else that made my heart skip a beat. I knew we were standing on the brink of something that could change everything. But when the cracks in your life start to show, they don't appear all at once. They creep into your soul like water seeping through stone. The decision to break off our relationship should have given me peace or even closure. But instead, it left me with a hollow aching that I couldn't ignore the reality that I would have to face my husband. This was the morning after my meeting with Sam in the park. I had always prided myself on being strong and able to weather any storm, but this one was my own making, and the destruction it would leave behind terrified me. I spent the next few days in a state of self-reflection, wondering how I had allowed things to get so out of control. I mentally relived every moment of our marriage, looking for the moments where we had faltered and where we had allowed the silence to grow between us. Daniel, the truth was a weight I wasn't ready to carry yet. Daniel had always been my pillar of support and a constant, dependable presence in my life. Although he wasn't the kind to show me affection with extravagant gestures or declarations, his dedication was clear in the small things. The way he held my hand through tough moments and made my coffee. He brewed my coffee the way I liked it every morning, held my hand through tough times, and had a quiet assurance in his voice that gave me hope that everything would be all right. However, somewhere along the line, I stopped seeing him and listening to him, and one evening as I sat at the kitchen table, the house was quiet except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator. It was a calm Sunday afternoon. The kids were out with friends. The house was bathed in the soft golden light of late autumn, and Daniel was sitting in the living room reading a book with his glasses perched on the bridge of his nose. It was such a familiar, comforting scene that for a moment I knew I couldn't keep the truth from him any longer, because the guilt was eating at me, and every time I looked into his eyes, I felt like a fraud. He deserved to know no matter how much it would hurt him, But how do you find the words to break their world? I nearly talked myself out of leaving to let the moment pass and keep my secret hidden. But then he looked up at me, his face tender and loving, and I realized I couldn't hide it any longer, Daniel. I started to tremble. Can we talk? He put the book down, and there was a slight furrow between his brows. Of course, he spoke in a calm but interested tone, asking, "What's on your mind?" I sat down across from him, my hands clasped tightly in my lap, my heart thumping so loudly that I could hardly hear my own thoughts. I needed to tell you something, but the words I had practiced 100 times in my head were insufficient in light of the reality I was about to disclose. He looked into my eyes, and I could see the flicker of worry, the slight hint of unease. And then I said, finally, my voice barely above a whisper, something I should have told you a long time ago. "All right," he said slowly, "I'm listening." And I told him about the growing distance between us, the loneliness that had crept into our marriage, and the way I had allowed myself to find comfort in someone else. I explained to him Sam's story, including how it began, developed, and concluded. I told him the truth straight and unvarnished, my voice cracking beneath the weight of my confession, without sugarcoating it or attempting to defend my behavior. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel stared at me with his hands clenched tightly in his lap, his expression unreadable, and I could see the pain in his eyes from the betrayal as well as the effort it took for him to keep himself together. He didn't scream or lash out. Instead, he just sat there, taking in the weight of what I had to say. "How long has this been going on? For months." I acknowledged that my voice was shaking. "But it's over now." He stood up suddenly and paced the room as if attempting to make sense of what he had just heard. I wanted to reach out to him and apologize, but I knew that nothing I said could undo the damage. "I swear to you, Daniel, I never meant to hurt you. Just stop," he said, holding up a hand. The look in his eyes broke my heart. It was a mixture of anger, sadness, and something else I couldn't quite name. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in our home was tense, and Daniel was distant, having short and pointless conversations with me. He threw himself into work, spending long hours at the office and coming home late. When he was home, he avoided me and retreated to the study or the bedroom without saying a word. "I had done I need some time," he finally said in a tight voice. "I need to think." And then he left the room, leaving me alone with the crushing weight of my guilt. I wanted to reach out to him and ask for his forgiveness, but I couldn't because I didn't know how I had damaged something so delicate and valuable between us, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be repaired. I was cleaning up after dinner one evening when he came into the kitchen and leaned against the counter with his arms folded across his chest. He just stared at me, his expression unreadable, and said, "We need to talk." His voice was steady but firm, and I nodded, setting the dish I was holding back in the sink. "Okay," he said, gesturing toward the dining table, and we sat down, across from each other. The air between us was heavy with unspoken words, and the silence dragged on until he finally broke it. "I've been thinking a lot about what you told me." He started, his voice measured, "and I need to know." Why his question? Why wasn't I enough for you? Pierced my heart, and I cried as I tried to find the right words. I finally cracked my voice, saying that it wasn't about you not being enough, but rather about me feeling lost and disconnected. I made the worst mistake of my life by letting myself think that what I was missing was something you couldn't give me. But in reality, I never gave you the chance. He nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. I'm not claiming I'm innocent, but he acknowledged that I've occasionally been aloof and that I've taken you for granted, but I never believed you would turn to someone. Otherwise, I'm so sorry. Daniel, I spoke in an emotionally charged tone. I understand that I have harmed you, and while I don't anticipate your forgiveness right now, I'm prepared to go to any lengths to put things right.